And just a reminder, this will give speaker view on Whova as far as what is being recorded to. So if you need to put on a virtual background to hide anything in your background, right now they all look great. So, but you have that option also. Just some of this as we are all learning together as ones who are leading this. So there we go. So if you've been having any troubles with Zoom on the first or second session, we're going to try to make sure in the chat features that we have all the Zoom links for you, or we're making those visible and sending them out to people also. So I can see them from the administrator side of things. And so we're going to work to make sure we share those with all participants in any of the sessions that we have so that you can view directly from Zoom if you would like to. And it tends to be a little less glitchy. So I know we have a couple people. We're getting ready to get started. If you have any questions at all during this time, you can use either the Zoom chat feature or the chat feature on Whova. So my name is Jessie. I'm on one of the planning committee members, and I will be moderating the non-formal educator track this weekend. So if you're doing sessions in this track, you're going to get to see my face a lot. But we want to just welcome Rachel and Krista to this session. This session is Artistic Biotechnology and Non-Formal Learning Environments. So we hope you guys are all in the right place. We will be making a recording of this, and that recording will be available for a year. So they're going to clean up the video a little bit, you know, take off the weird stuff on the beginning and just really start with the meat of it. So there's going to be opportunities for professional development for others to watch these videos for up to a year after that. So we're really excited about having that opportunity. We do want to just thank our EEAI sponsors. We want to thank NIPSCO, the Mary Lee Environmental Center at Goshen College, and also NAAE for sponsoring this conference and making this possible. So our speakers today are Rachel Geesa and Krista Stith. Rachel taught PK through 12 in Indiana and then served as a visual arts educator, gifted resource specialist and assistant principal in United States Department of Defense Education Activity Schools in South Korea, Japan, and Virginia. Upon her completion of her doctoral degree in educational administration at Ball State, became an assistant professor of educational leadership at the institution. She holds education and building and district level administrator licenses in Indiana. Rachel focuses her work and research on areas to support educational leaders, creative thinking, integrative STEM and STEAM education, and mentoring. She also enjoys traveling, cooking, and spending time with friends and family. Dr. Krista Stith began her teaching career as a life science professor and high school science teacher in Southwest Virginia. After completing her work in curriculum and instruction, Integrative STEM Education Department at Virginia Tech, Krista became the director of the Center for Gifted Studies and Talent Development at Ball State University. She currently teaches pre-service teachers about STEM content and pedagogy and runs a K through 5 STEM club. Krista has worked extensively in integrative STEM education initiatives at the local, state, and national levels. She also enjoys gardening, writing children's books, and spending time with her family. And Krista and Rachel are both co-founders of STEM Integrations, so they'll be sharing about some of that today. So just kind of a reminder, all of you guys right now are muted, but just kind of keep yourself muted unless it's a time where we're opening up the floor there. You can have your videos turned on or off. We would love to see your pretty faces. They will be doing some screen sharing, so at that point we'll only see their screens, but there'll be time for questions. If there's any questions you would like to ask, please put them in the chat feature, either on Whova or here on Zoom, and we'll be happy to answer those. I'll be watching that during the presentation, and at the end we'll use that for asking them. So we'll kind of give them a reminder when they have a couple minutes left. So right now I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Rachel and Krista to hear what they have to say.
Thank you so much. We're happy to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
All right. Well, thank you. Both Krista and I are thrilled to be a part of this conference. Part of the work that we've been doing together is trying to better understand different ways to integrate STEM and arts subjects together for teachers and for educational leaders to better understand how we can create integrative learning opportunities for students. And so this presentation is about artistic biotechnology in formal learning environments.
Okay, as people come in, we're going to try to do something cool technology-wise, and it may crash and burn, but hopefully we'll be able to have this up and running. So what we'd like to ask you to do is to either on your phone, on a tablet, on your computer, go to a website called joinpd.com. joinpd.com. We have the website in the chat there as well. When you go to joinpd.com, you can enter in this code. It's up here in the corner. I also added it in the chat as well. CTM space CYM. So again, you can use your computer, tablet, phone, any digital device will work. And it'll ask you a question. How are you doing today? Hopefully everyone is doing well. And then we'll see if this works. So for those of you who have been able to log into joinpd.com, what you'll see is that you have some options here. You can actually draw with your finger if you have a touch screen, or you can type an answer here so that you're able to engage with the actual PowerPoint presentation. So the question here, draw or type 2 things you already know about biotechnology. And then just to make sure it works, are people able to interact with the screen? You'll see here. This first one, those were my answers, so I just wrote random things down.
Jenna Lee has given us a thumbs up that it is working.
Okay. Oh. Someone drew a dot. That's great. Oh, we have 2 dots. Someone drew a leaf, I believe, some kind of a plant. So for those people who are coming in, you're going to go to joinpd.com, enter in this code up here in the corner, CTM space CYM. And then with your mouse, your finger, if you're having a touch screen, you are answering these two prompts, or draw or type 2 things you know about biotechnology. Fermentation, very good. Beautiful flower. That's gorgeous. Okay, so we can have a conversation about this. Does anybody know anything about biotechnology? Fermentation, would the person who wrote fermentation like to share a little bit? It's okay, it's a quiet group, it's all right. My pre-service teachers are the same way. I'll get it out of you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and discuss what our agenda will look like today.
So here's our agenda. We want to explore what is bioart, what is biotechnology education, what is artistic biotechnology, and what is design thinking. And then we want to dig deeper into thinking about how does artistic biotechnology tie into environmental science. And we have some K-12 examples, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. With Krista's background in biotechnology and my background in art, we feel like our knowledge and thoughts and skill sets complement each other to talk with you all about it.
Mm-hmm. And not only do I have a biotech background, I also taught environmental sciences for high school students for several years. And so I feel very much at home in this group here and talking about environmental science and how we're able to use biotechnology in the classroom. Because oftentimes when we think about biotechnology, it's something that's a little scary for a lot of people. But I think hopefully after this presentation today, you'll have some ideas on how you can incorporate it into your own program. So one of the first things we wanted to talk about was biotechnology versus bioart. And they both certainly have a wonderful opportunity in the educational space. So for bioart, that's when you're going to be using nature, you're using the environment to create artwork. So here are some examples here. We have several Petri dishes, and in these Petri dishes, we have different organisms of bacteria and fungi that are actually artistic in nature. So you can use an inoculating loop or a Q-tip, and you're able to create these beautiful artworks. Here we have a rainbow, and so the students were taking different parts of nature and creating this gorgeous display. And then down here in the corner with the leaf and the rainbow, that's a beautiful photograph that I could certainly have hanging up in my house. So we're using the natural world for aesthetic beauty. So biotechnology is going to be a little bit different. So what exactly is biotechnology? The definition kind of depends on who you ask, but we've used here the Office of Technological Assessment, and it's including any technique that uses living organisms or parts of living organisms to make or modify products, to improve plants or animals, or to develop microorganisms for specific purposes. And that sounds kind of a complicated definition. You have to sit there and kind of process what exactly that means. So over here, another way to think about it is the intentional use of organisms, plants, animals, and microorganisms as tools for fulfilling our wants and needs. And so we have a couple of examples of traditional biotechnology versus contemporary biotechnology. So here's an example. You can use the Paradeck app, and as you can see on your screen, you should have a little dot. So you can actually move your dot to what you feel is the right answer. So the question here, what organism does an herbalist use? Okay, again, if you have the Pear Deck app up, you have a little blue dot in the corner of the screen and you can drag your dot to any of these different areas. Okay, so herbalists use plants, so hopefully that one was pretty easy. Another one, what organism does a dairy farmer use to collect milk? So our options here are seaweed, Holsteins, or fungi. There we go. Okay, everybody agrees, Holsteins, excellent. What organism would a baker use? All right, and so yeast. So I have over here a woody vine. So teachers, anybody want to call out what species this is? No? Poison oak. So hopefully nobody would think to use poison oak in baking, but. Okay, last one. True or false? Is this strawberry real? So this one is a trick question. It's true and false. So yes, there is such a thing as a blue strawberry. The blue strawberry does not look like this. What someone did was they took the genes out of a flounder, specifically the antifreeze capabilities, and put them in strawberries so strawberries would be able to withstand frost. But the actual product of that genetic modification is not actually blue. This is Photoshop. Very well done, Photoshop, though. Okay, and so then last of all, thinking about what kind of organisms are used to create a cheeseburger. So I'll give you guys a moment to think about what kind of organisms are used to build a cheeseburger. So for people that are using Pear Deck, you're able to either write something or people are able to share. Okay, does anybody want to have any, physically say any suggestions? How do we use organisms to create a cheeseburger? So wheat, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we use microorganisms to do the buns and the process of making the cheese, maybe. And then the animals to make your burger, or the plants as well, depending on what type of burger you have.
I was going to say you break down the items that you're using, the things that you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that goes on to making a cheeseburger. So absolutely, you have the plants that are involved in, let's say, making the bun, making the burger, making the ketchup. You have the mold creating the cheese, microorganisms like yeast creating the bread. So yeah, we absolutely use biotechnology to create a cheeseburger. So those are examples of very traditional biotechnology where humans have been using these products or creating these products using the natural world for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. With contemporary biotechnology, we're still using plants, we're still using animals, we're still using microorganisms, but we're using them in ways that are continuously innovating the world that we live in. So for instance, thinking about the health. So what was life like prior to antibiotics, prior to penicillin, prior to herbalists understanding how plants can be used medicinally versus what we have now? For food, genetically modified food, what ways are these genetically modified foods impacting our society for good or for bad? Transportation, biofuels, is that environmentally beneficial or is it environmentally detrimental or is it a little bit of both? Forensics is another example of how we're using the natural world around us to use DNA fingerprinting. It's pretty amazing in what ways we've been able to innovate our natural world in our society today. So in thinking what biotechnology education looks like, here is a taxonomical categorization of looking at foundation, looking at the environment, which is probably where everybody is looking at right now. So for example, bioremediation, which we'll talk about, of using plants, animals, microorganisms to clean up our environment. Biological controls, so thinking about how to reduce pest impact on our society using plants, animals, or microorganisms. Biotreatment systems, so wastewater, for instance. So a lot of ways that we are using plants, animals, microorganisms in our environment. Same thing with agriculture, biochemistry, medicine, bioprocessing. So we'll briefly go through some of these different examples and how they can be used in a non-formal classroom environment. So here's something to think about. With biotechnology education, are educators adequately preparing students to be informed of the kinds of decisions that have biotechnological solutions? Thinking back to the previous slide, decisions on their health, decisions on their food, decisions on lifestyle. Would you agree or disagree? And you can go anywhere on that spectrum. You could be neutral. Okay, let's see for the people that are with us. Okay, so someone is neutral and then everybody else kind of moves a little bit more towards disagree. And I would agree with you on that. So for instance, I'm from Virginia, and in Virginia we had 3 high school level biotechnology educators and I was one of them. So for the most part, as far as formal biotechnology opportunities in K through 12, there's not really a lot of them. But that's where the non-formal education space can really come in.
All righty. So with biotechnology, we have defined it as an integrative design thinking approach of using plants, animals, or microorganisms as tools to make products and then purposeful consideration of the artful components of the products. So when we're thinking about artistic biotechnology, we definitely want our students to keep in mind the elements of art and principles of design in the work that they're doing. And we'll further discuss the elements in the next slide. So within the elements of art, as we're talking with students about art and looking at art and thinking about art and why they like certain artworks and why they don't like certain artworks, we definitely want to give them some vocabulary to use in their considerations of what they're creating and what they're critiquing. And those elements of art include line. So that could be using vocabulary like horizontal, vertical, wavy, curvy, colors. So looking at all the colors within the color wheel and thinking about complementary colors, analogous color schemes, what work together and what's aesthetically pleasing. Shapes, so there are organic shapes and there are geometric shapes, and how do those shapes complement one another, or how do you differentiate them? Textures, is something spiky, soft, smooth, rough, hard, wavy forms. So moving from shapes that are two-dimensional objects to forms which are three-dimensional, and adding that dimension of depth. So that's really important in thinking about three-dimensional pieces and sculptures. Value, so that grayscale, or that scale from light to dark, it doesn't necessarily have to be a grayscale. And then space, how is there a balance between positive and negative space, and how do you think about those things? And then we have principles of design. So here are some principles of design. If you were to Google principles of design, you would find several different model types of forms. Emphasis, where is the key focus that you're trying to have the viewer look at? Movements or repetition and patterns, all of those kind of go together in different types of ways. With patterns, I like to think about tessellations. Proportions, there's large things, small things, how do those go together and complement each other? And rhythm, unity, harmonies, often referred to in that sense there. And then variety, how do you bring in a variety of different shapes, colors, textures, and make them complement one another?
So we've talked about a couple of major components here, and now we're going to add them in what the educational landscape could look like. So we've talked about biotechnology, and again, using plants, animals, microorganisms as tools to create some kind of a product, some kind of a solution for a want or a need. We've also talked about the art component because as many of us know, what we're doing, you do need to have a little bit of an art and creative thinking and getting that buy-in from your students. And then your students have to think about how their creativeness would go into the products that they're designing. So another thing that we're going to talk about here is the design thinking of creating a biotechnological solution. So we have a couple of different examples here of elementary school students, middle school students, and high school students, how they were using biotechnology to go through a process to create a solution for an end user. And they used the design thinking model to be able to create that final solution. So we'll go through some different examples here of how these students used empathy. So they're solving a problem. They need to be able to empathize with an end user who has this problem. Once they learn about their end user, they empathize with their end user, then they go to the define stage. And in the define stage, that's where they say, this is the problem that I have identified with my end user. I'm going to solve it this way. This is the problem. How am I going to solve it for the end user? From there, they go to the ideate stage. And the ideate stage is really simply brainstorming. They're going to brainstorm potential solutions to solve the problem. From there, they're going to choose a final solution that they feel is going to be a good fit to solve the problem for the end user. So they're going to develop a prototype and they're going to test that prototype. And then from there, it is an iterative process. They may design a prototype, test it, and realize, wow, this really wasn't what I expected it to do, or I could do something better. And then they're going to go back to a previous step, and they're going to keep going through the design thinking until they have a final solution that really suits the needs of the end user and solves the problem. So thinking about environmental challenges that are in our communities and globally, what are some universal challenges with oil spills? Environmental challenges, health challenges, economic challenges? Any suggestions?
Yeah, effects on wildlife.
Absolutely. Yes, the effects on wildlife. It can be devastating. One more challenge with oil spills.
Thanks. See,
Water quality. Water quality.
Yep, water quality. Absolutely. So as we know with oil spills, it's a very complex series of issues that can arise. So having students think about how they can contribute to solving this problem of oil spills and starting at a young age can be fantastic in thinking about themselves as environmentalists. So one solution, there are many solutions for cleaning up oil spills, but one that uses plants to solve the problem is phytoremediation. So in phytoremediation, it's the efficient use of plants to remove, detoxify, or immobilize environmental contaminants in a growth matrix, such as soil or water, through natural, biological, chemical, or physical activities and processes of the plant. So you're using the plant to remove the oil contaminant from soil or water. So there are plant species out there that can break down those hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water. And it's a very natural solution. There are weaknesses to it, like the length of time to clean up the oil spill, but still it is a solution, and it's a natural solution to cleaning up oil spills. So for a group of third graders, their design challenge is to clean up an oil spill that occurred in a local park. And they have to use a biotechnological solution, phytoremediation, to be able to do so. So first, they have to build empathy. So they have to learn about the community. They have to learn about the wildlife that's in that community that's been impacted, learn about the water quality that it was before and currently is now. So there's different ways that the students would be able to get that information. So it's going to be a multi-tiered way for them to collect data from different sources. So for instance, interviewing a conservationist, observing pictures of oil spills or videos, video conference with a government official who would be in charge of, let's say, a Parks and Rec department, and they would be able to provide some input about oil spill in this community. So from there, the students define the problem of removing oil from this soil, from this park, and they're going to use plants to be able to do that. So from there, the students will break apart and they're going to ideate their solutions on how this would occur. And then they're going to meet in small groups and think about their ideas. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses of those ideas? And come up with a final solution. For this particular class, they used storyboards. So they created stories on paper and on whiteboards on how they would solve this problem. And then for this, since these guys were younger, we wouldn't necessarily want them out cleaning up the oil. They did use food as a way to describe or to communicate their solution to solving this problem. And so how they would situate plants around a lake, they simulated through food. And so they had a little party. And then as far as understanding like how plants could uptake contaminants from the soil, it could be something as simple as having plants in the classroom and you sprinkle some Kool-Aid on the plants, so that's safe for the students, but they can see the uptake of the contaminant as the leaves turn red. So another biotechnology activity would be household cleaners. So what are, I'm sorry, oh, it's the question mark, okay. So what are some challenges with the traditional household cleaners? Like you go to the store, let's say go to Target or Walmart and you buy some household cleaners off the shelf. What are some challenges with those?
Well, I would say that most household cleaners, people don't realize are very harmful to both themselves and the environment. And that's why they need to use alternatives to what we call HHW and bring what they have to HHW facilities that collect it. We have drop-off center in Bloomington at the Monroe County Waste Management District.
Mhm.
So I think the challenge is to create things that are plant-based and things that do not harm pets or people.
Absolutely. And so this would be a great challenge for, you could start in elementary, but we did this with middle school students and thinking about how they can create household cleaners through a biotechnological solution instead of having to necessarily rely on some of the harsher products that are potentially detrimental to the environment and to themselves. So for this one, they used enzymology. So they used enzymes, and enzymes can be derived from plants and animals and microsystems to develop some kind of way to break down the components of stains. So the design challenge here, the end user was a household cleaner company. And this household cleaner company had a goal to become more environmentally friendly. And so they wanted their cleaning products to have much more of an enzymology process rather than what they were currently using. But they also still wanted to remain competitive. And so they were caring about the artistic, and actually I didn't really talk much about this in the previous activity, so I'll get back to it. They wanted this company to also be competitive, and so they had to think about the artistic components of that biotechnological solution. And so they were using design thinking not only as a way to develop a environmentally friendly household cleaner, but also using design thinking to think about how to create the marketing materials for this organization. So first thing, we need to develop empathy. Why would they even care about creating a household cleaner that is environmentally friendly? So there are different ways that they could go about it. They could interview someone that works with different types of cleaners, such as the custodian at the school or the summer camp. They could talk about it with researchers. They could collect data and using their senses and their observations to perhaps make their own decisions as why these cleaners may not necessarily, commercialized cleaners may not be safe. And even just talking with people that use cleaners and getting their thoughts on it. From there, they're going to define the problem. How might we design a cleaner that would be competitive for a cleaning company, but still environmentally friendly? So in those brackets there, you can just add in whatever terms you want to, but that's a good phrase for students to think positively that I can be a way to solve this problem. I can be the one that comes up with a solution. So from here, the students were able to play around with different types of enzymes and different types of stains to see what kind of a enzymology formula worked for different types of stains, such as a grass stain, a food stain, and on different types of surfaces with different types of textures to see what would work. Students also were thinking about, again, the marketing materials and how you would use those marketing materials on the container of your biotechnological solution. And then lastly, again, they were able to test it and graph their data. So they were able to also bring in math as well with the chemistry, the science, and the art. All right, the last one, this is going to be a high school challenge. So looking at energy use, what are some universal challenges with the level of energy that we're using here globally?
We need to use green renewable energy and more of it, and explain to people and educate people more on it, and make it affordable, more affordable.
Yes, absolutely. And so having students with some knowledge and some skills with alternative energy sources is not a bad thing to have. And so having students think beyond, oh, you know, my parents go to the gas station and, or I can fill up my car with the gas that's, you know, here at Payless, then we want them to start thinking beyond that. And again, thinking about how they can solve these environmental issues and using it with biotechnological solutions. So one solution to our energy consumption here is thinking about bioprocessing. So bioprocessing in and of itself is a really general term. It's a wide umbrella term on using living cells or components, bacteria, enzymes, chloroplasts inside of cells to obtain desired products. And so a device that kind of fits under this bioprocessing is a microbial fuel cell. Is anyone here familiar with microbial fuel cells? They're going to be really popular right now in the research field. So microbial fuel cells, again, they're devices where you're using the energy generated from bacteria and you're collecting that energy, that electricity, and then using it for a human purpose. So I have here the more scientific way to describe it, the converting chemical energy into electrical energy. And then you're able to collect that energy and use it for something. So for the design challenge here, we have a homeowner, so that's our end user, aspired to decrease the carbon footprint and lower electricity bills. The homeowner has heard of microbial fuel cells as an emerging technology and was interested. However, the homeowner has requested that a microbial fuel cell be aesthetically pleasing for the home. So if this is something that you have in your house, microbial fuel cells involve organic material like mud. So you want it to look nice. You may not necessarily want, a big kiddie pool of mud in the middle of your living room. So thinking about the aesthetics behind this is also important. So ways for students to create microbial fuel cells? Absolutely. I taught this in my biotechnology classes, and I actually had one student, he created 3 or 4 different ones over the course of the year just because he thought they were really, really cool to make. So some ways that you can start to build empathy with homeowners or anyone that's using electricity and is paying higher electricity bills. You could talk to an alternative energy instructor at the local community college, watch online videos that are describing alternative energies or what the current energy crisis looks like globally, read electrical meters in their homes for a week and record what that data potentially looks like. And then also familiarizing with local, state, and federal policies. So you can bring in what's going on in their AP government class, for instance, and understanding what this looks like from many different lenses, not just an environmental science lens. All right, so define the problem. How might we develop an aesthetically pleasing bioelectrical system? How might we do it? Through microbial fuel cells. So ideation phase, they're going to be sketching on paper, that's what these students did, and then they agree on a final solution. For the prototype, so for us, we actually gave the kids some buckets and some shovels and sent them outside, and they had to collect their own soil, really wet, rich organic material soil to be able to run their microbial fuel cells. And each group had a very different approach. And so the instructor did need to run to Home Depot and collect different materials for each group. And then they're going to build their prototype. And this is the fun part, being able to test that prototype. And so using multimeters and actually seeing the electricity levels rise as the microorganisms are generating this electricity is really, really cool to see. So there are some different ways that students would be able to, again, create these microbial fuel cells. And for this, right now, they don't create a lot of electricity. So right now, an LED light bulb is like a pretty good goal to have. And even then, it's a challenge. But at least the students are trying to get this LED light bulb to light up based on just the electricity generated from microorganisms. So they can actually graph this data over the course of a week, several weeks, depending on how long you're keeping those microbes alive. Because again, we're using microorganisms here as our tool for what we want, which is alternative energy. And so this would be a really neat culminating event that could be used at the end of a semester or at a science fair on a STEM day. So that way the community, parents, guardians, other students can see these microbial fuel cells that the students created. But again, also thinking about the aesthetics as well. Microbial fuel cells can potentially be very messy. So thinking about the different designs, those principles, those elements that Rachel mentioned earlier are things that need to be considered. And then what I had forgotten to mention when I was talking about the elementary school activity, so the aesthetic, the artistic component of that was that we had an oil spill we were going to use plants to clean up the oil through phytoremediation, the town that had the oil spill still cared a lot that the lake looks wonderful, that it still has a very aesthetic look to it. So the students had to think about the placement of plants in ways that made the environment still look very, very natural. Okay, so from here, artistic biotechnology can be done in a classroom. It can be done outside. How can we do it virtually? And this is something, Rachel and I don't actually have answers for this. This is something that we can actually use design thinking ourselves. So how and what ways could we use plants, animals, microorganisms as tools to create something? And then how can we do it virtually? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Maybe create kits that you can have the kids have at their home, like mail it out to them or pick up so that they have the available, the available things. Or if you live maybe in an area that you know that students have a backyard, challenge them to use their backyard in these experiments.
Yeah, those are great solutions right there. So when I was in grad school, I had a biotechnology class, and we had students in Hawaii and London. So the professor actually mailed out like the supplies for everybody beforehand, and the students would take videos and pictures of what they were creating at home. So that's what worked for our class virtually. But yeah, absolutely for doing it for pre-K through 12th grade. Mm-hmm. And then I also appreciated your second suggestion as well. I think, yeah, supporting students in how they can use their home environments is a great way to not only have them use design thinking to try to solve a problem, but also, again, having them, again, go outside and just try things, take some risks, just see what works, see what doesn't work. I might do that with my son later on, just send him outside, solve an environmental problem.
And I think that would help with the empathy part as well, because it's something at home. So they're going to empathize with it maybe just a little bit more versus maybe even at the school, just because it's something they see every day.
Yep, I agree. What else? Does anybody else have any thoughts on how we could use artistic biotechnology in a virtual environment?
Well, I'm not sure I can use it in a science way because I don't have that background, but I can see a lot of potential in this with using it in the marketing area and having them interview people to gather the information and be more empathic. And it's a great social studies lesson too. It has there are a lot of different ways that you could do this, where you put a lot of the work on the student to do the interviews and to research and then come up with a storyboard, whatever their age is, or a marketing plan, or a 30-second commercial, or a radio public service announcement. I think there are a lot of possibilities there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those are great suggestions, and students are becoming more familiar with how to use technology. We're seeing some increased capacities in digital literacy, so this could be something to harness. And these kids are going to be going into a very scientifically and technologically driven world, so having those kinds of skill sets through these experiences can be very beneficial for them.
One other
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, one other challenge would be to create a solution to the packaging of take-home containers for restaurants, something that would not harm our environment. And I think that would be an interesting challenge because it takes on both a design aspect, and then they could look at what packagers need and the fact that restaurants need to have it inexpensive, but yet they don't want to hurt the environment, et cetera, things like that. So packaging would be a good aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And there's actually a really good example of a company, and I can't remember what they're called right off the top of my head. They use fungus. So they grow fungus, they dry the fungus, and using that as packaging materials instead of styrofoam. Because after it's shipped, you take this packaging material made out of fungus and throw it away. What's it going to do in a landfill? It's going to do what fungus does. And so that's a great way to, again, help think about an environmental solution using biotechnology. But I
And
agree.
there have been some things like that where they say it can be composted, but it can only be composted in a community compost, which heats up faster. So that'd be the other challenge to get students to realize. It ties in with composting too. How can you create a packaging product that could be home composted?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would also be fun too to have them take like an everyday object that they use at their home, like a toothbrush, and try to kind of find the similar solution, like their toothbrush, and saying, how can we, create a toothbrush that still does what it needs to do, but is compost. You can put it in the compost, or, it's not just plastic ending up in a landfill.
Yep, absolutely. And you never know, you might have a student that they're the one that comes up with the solution that could change the toothbrush industry as we know it. Well, thank you for those suggestions. And we'll have a Q&A after this as well. So if anyone has any additional ideas of how we can incorporate this into our programs, that we'll have that opportunity to.
So in summary, we covered what is bioart, what is biotechnology education, and then what is artistic biotechnology, and how are those elements of art and principles of design intentionally incorporated in this process. We talked about what is design thinking, how does artistic biotechnology tie into environmental sciences, and Krista provided some great K through 12 examples. So Krista and I have created STEM Integrations LLC within Indiana to help support you as educators, educational leaders. We want to support your schools and your districts. And we can help in a variety of ways in terms of schools who want to pursue STEM or STEAM school certification. We can provide professional learning opportunities. We do public speaking, grant writing, leadership trainings, curriculum writing, educational research, audits, and much more. Whatever your school or you individually need, we're happy to support you in that way. And if you'd like to ask any, here's our contact info. If you would like to reach out to us, you're welcome to call that phone number, or email us individually, or visit our website for more information. Also, Krista wrote a children's book using the design thinking process. And so you're welcome to visit Amazon and check out how to keep an owl dry in the rain.
You don't have to buy the book though. If you email me at kstith@STEM Integrations, I'll send you a digital copy, like an ebook for free. But I was trying to think of an easy way to describe design thinking for students and going through those processes of empathy all the way through testing. And so this book is just an easy way for me to communicate that to students. And my kids are the main characters, so that was kind of fun.
What questions do you have or thoughts?
I just want to thank Rachel and Krista for coming and talking to us and just really bringing up that empathy component as a start to that design process. So keep asking questions in the chat feature here on Zoom, but the chat feature on the Whova site underneath the agenda will also stay up even after this Zoom meeting goes away. So if you continue to have questions, even after this is done, continue to ask that. Go into the speaker bios and send them messages if you continue to have questions. So, but we would love, we have about 5 more minutes for you guys to ask questions either in chat or just by unmuting yourself and asking them, and we'd love to know what you think. And currently we do not have any questions in either of the chat features, so.
Has anyone done something in their programs where they're using plants or microorganisms or animals to solve a problem? It doesn't have to necessarily be artistic biotechnology, just a way that you're using that natural environment.
Well, I did one, it was on household hazardous waste as part of a series. And at the very end, we had the students create their own cleaning solution. And so they put a third of vinegar in there and the rest water in a spray bottle. And they really liked it. It was very nice, but it was a series, so it took a lot of time. And so only one school opted to do it. But and actually the results were published on that one. But I would have liked to have done it for more schools, but they tend to not want to do anything with household hazardous waste. And this was a 4th grade class, but I think it'd be important to have at the lower levels, even 3rd grade and 2nd, so that students get more. I think teachers get a little worried about it.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And a lot of the enzymes that were used for this class, they were just purchased off Amazon, like meat tenderizer, amylase. And so, of course, we wore gloves and safety goggles as well. Yeah, the home cleaner that I use oftentimes in my house is vinegar, isopropyl alcohol, and a couple of drops of Dawn dish soap. Does a pretty good job.
I did have a question. Have you guys ever tried the Petri dish art that was shown earlier in the slideshow?
I have. So I've done that with my students. I taught microbiology to high school students and community college students. And so that was a way to get them initially used to holding a Petri dish and having the environment around them as sterilized as possible, and incubation. So that was just kind of an easy way for them to get used to using the materials before we started getting into more advanced skills. We've also done something similar with like a STEM day, more of an outreach, but we just made sure that we taped up the Petri dishes really well, so that way students weren't able to get in after the growth had started occurring and potentially get themselves into trouble.
So I work at a college as my second job, and we usually have like a 3rd grade academy come in for one day in the summer, and we do usually like a 30-minute science project. And so that was kind of interesting because I think it's something, since they're there for a week, they could come back and see later in the week. Do you happen to remember any of the specific like microbes you used to get some of those colors?
Off the top of my head, I'm afraid I would butcher the names. So if you do want to email me, I can look up the names real fast and send them to you. I do know I use Pseudomonas fluorescens for the college students because it does glow in the dark. So that was something that was kind of a neat additional feature. But everything that we used was relatively safe. It's not like we were using organisms that were pathogenic. But yeah, if you send me an email, I'll find out what those organisms were.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we have time for one more question if anybody has anything they need to get out. Well, as we wrap this up today, just a huge thanks to Krista and Rachel again. Remember, you can message them on the Whova site or app. Underneath the agenda, when you click on there, it does give you the option to rate the session. So please do that. That is the evaluation. So it won't say evaluation, but it'll say rate session. And that is definitely information that we look at every year when we're organizing the next conference. So we're looking at, wow, like we want these speakers back. We want more information on some of these topics. So there's questions to answer, and then there is a kind of fill in the blank one at the bottom where you can just say whatever you want. And that's definitely where we get a lot of information on how we do things. Looking at just the agenda, right now there's a little bit of a break. If you are a first timer to an EEAI conference, or it's been a while, there is a new member student welcome at 5:30. And then at 6:30 to 7 is the awards and board election results. And then at 7:15 to 8:30 is one of our keynote speakers, David Sobel, talking about developing a ladder of environmental responsibility. So we're really excited about everything that's happening tonight with those. And then after David Sobel's done, from 8:30 to 10, we have EEAI has Talent Showcase. And that is always one of the highlights of any of our get-togethers, so just the creativity that comes out and just the passions of everybody there. So all of those will have separate links. We're going to be working to get the direct Zoom links put into the chat features also under each of those items. So when you click on the agenda, you can go directly to Zoom if that helps you for that. So that is what is going on tonight, but we appreciate all of you guys joining us. Please continue to interact on the community boards, asking questions, sharing your tidbits of wisdom, and just to participate in the photo and caption contest also. So there's a lot of great things going on this weekend, and we look forward to sharing this weekend with you. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.